I was sitting here thinking about how chaotic our world feels right now. Everyone chasing noise, attention, and instant gratification. And then I look at this community, over 1 billion people moving in rhythm, bound by prayer, discipline, and faith. It hits me while so many of us are scattered, distracted, and lost, they're united, anchored, and strong. There's a power in that kind of cohesion you can't fake. It makes me wonder, in a world that glorifies freedom without direction, who's really free? The ones drifting endlessly, or the ones who know exactly who they are and what they stand for? I've lived a wild life. Fighting, comedy, long nights, the grind of chasing success. Martial arts taught me a lot about discipline, but outside the gym, the world always felt like chaos. I'd see people drifting with no anchor, and honestly, I felt that too. Then I had this moment. I was backstage before a fight, and I noticed a Muslim fighter stepping aside. While the crowd roared, the lights flashed, he laid down a small mat and prayed, complete calm, total focus. It was like the madness around him didn't exist. That stuck with me. Later, during Ramadan, I saw fighters and everyday people fasting all day, training, working, living their lives without complaint. And it wasn't just willpower, it was something deeper. Discipline wrapped in faith. Sacrifice tied to meaning. That opened my eyes. I realized martial arts gave me discipline in one part of my life, but I was missing a bigger structure, a higher purpose. I'm here talking about this because I respect that kind of strength. Not the flashy kind, but the quiet, unshakable kind. When you see it up close, you feel it. It makes you question your own path, your own anchors. That was my awakening, the moment I understood there's something powerful in faith that carries people through the storms of life with clarity and certainty. And I couldn't ignore it. What really pulls me in when I look at Islam is the discipline. 5 times a day, no matter where you are, no matter what's happening, you stop, you pray, you reconnect. Think about that. The whole world can be going insane around you, but you have this built-in pause button, this anchor that locks you back into who you are and what you believe. That's powerful. Now, in the West, we glorify this idea of freedom. You can do whatever you want, whenever you want. And yeah, that sounds great. But what usually happens, people binge Netflix until 3 a.m., eat junk food, scroll endlessly on their phones. Freedom without discipline just turns into chains you can't even see. We think we're free, but really we're trapped by distractions. Meanwhile, the guy who kneels on the mat 5 times a day has more control over his mind and body than most of us ever will. I'll never forget seeing a Muslim fighter backstage before his match. Everyone else is pacing, nervous, bouncing around, trying to hype themselves up. This guy, he finds a quiet corner, lays down his mat, and prays. While the rest of us are drowning in adrenaline, he's centered, calm, unshakable. He walks into the cage with the kind of peace you can't buy, you can't fake. That's the kind of thing discipline gives you. It's like carrying an anchor in the middle of a storm. The winds can be insane, the waves crashing, but you don't drift. You're locked into something deeper, something unmovable. And that's why this discipline is magnetic. It's not about rules for the sake of rules. It's about clarity in a world built to distract you. It's about finding freedom not by chasing every impulse, but by mastering yourself. That's what real power looks like. One of the things that struck me the most while traveling is how quickly Muslims connect with each other. You'll be walking down the street in some random country, you don't speak the language, you don't know anyone, and then someone passes you with a simple salam. Just one word, and suddenly there's this bond. Like you've known each other your whole life. No paperwork, no secret handshake, just faith creating instant family. That blew me away. I remember being in a busy market overseas, watching two guys who were complete strangers stop what they were doing, greet each other, and then walk together like old friends. It wasn't forced, it wasn't awkward, it was natural. That sense of unity is powerful, and honestly, it's rare to see anywhere else. Now, compare that to modern society. We're supposed to be connected more than ever with social media, but really, it feels like we're all just screaming at each other through screens. You got people arguing in comment sections like it's a sport, blocking each other over politics, canceling each other for saying the wrong thing. That's not connection, that's chaos, dressed up as communication. And let's be real, half of us don't even know our neighbors' names, but we'll fight a stranger online about pineapple on pizza. The unity I've seen in Muslim communities is something different. It's rooted in shared values, in a deep sense of identity. When you pray the same way, eat the same way, greet each other the same way, you build a rhythm of life that connects you to millions of others instantly. That's not just community, that's brotherhood. And what's wild is how simple it, island, a handshake, a smile, a shared prayer, and suddenly you're not alone. You belong. That kind of connection isn't built on trends or algorithms, it's built on something timeless. And in a world where loneliness is skyrocketing, where people feel more isolated than ever despite being plugged in, seeing that kind of unity feels like a wake-up call. It makes you realize that maybe the real strength isn't in standing apart, it's in standing together, grounded in something bigger than yourself. When I dive into history, I can't help but be blown away by how much Muslims have contributed to the world we live in today. Math, medicine, astronomy, architecture, you name it. We throw around terms like algebra or algorithm without even thinking about where they came from. These weren't just random discoveries, they were breakthroughs born out of a culture that valued knowledge, discipline, and faith working hand in hand. I remember walking through old cities, standing in front of mosques that have stood for centuries, their walls carved with intricate designs, their domes reaching into the sky. You can feel the weight of history pressing down on you. These weren't just buildings, they were symbols of a civilization that saw learning and worship as part of the same journey. Imagine living in a time where scientists, doctors, and philosophers weren't separated from faith but driven by it. That alignment produced some of the most advanced knowledge humanity had seen. Think about hospitals in the Islamic Golden Age, where physicians documented diseases, performed surgeries, and developed treatments still respected today. Or the scholars who preserved ancient Greek and Roman texts while Europe was drowning in the Dark Ages. Without them, massive parts of our intellectual heritage would have been lost forever. That's not just history, that's a reminder of what happens when discipline and faith fuel the pursuit of truth. It motivates me because it shows what's possible when people have a higher purpose guiding their work. Civilization doesn't advance through chaos, it advances through direction, through values, through a sense of duty that goes beyond the self. When knowledge and faith march together, humanity moves forward. And maybe that's the lesson for us today. We don't need more noise, we need more purpose. We need anchors strong enough to build something that lasts for centuries, not just for clicks and views. One of the things that inspires me most when I look at Muslim communities is how much emphasis they put on family. It's not just a word, it's the foundation. You walk into a Muslim household and there's structure. Kids know to respect their parents, grandparents are treated like treasures, and family time isn't something squeezed into the calendar, it's a priority. That discipline inside the home shapes everything that follows. I've seen it firsthand. A father leading prayer while his kids line up beside him, mimicking every move, learning discipline not through lectures but through example. A grandmother telling stories, passing down wisdom that no screen could ever replace. Meals shared at one table, no phones buzzing, no distractions, just conversation and connection. That's culture alive, generation after generation. Now compare that to what we see in so much of modern life. Families sitting together, but everyone's face lit by a different screen. Parents distracted, kids glued to tablets, and conversations replaced by scrolling. We call that progress, but what are we really losing? If children grow up with TikTok as their teacher and Instagram as their mentor, what kind of foundation is that? In Muslim communities, family isn't left to chance. It's intentional. Kids are raised with values, patience, respect, gratitude. They learn that life isn't just about them, it's about contributing to something bigger. And because of that, families feel active, vibrant, full of energy. You see kids laughing with their cousins, playing outside, growing up in a web of connection that keeps them strong. And that's the real power building the future. A strong family isn't just about today's comfort, it's about tomorrow's leaders. Every prayer shared, every story told, every act of respect passed down, it's all training for life. It's how values survive centuries, how cultures thrive no matter what the world throws at them. That's not weakness, that's strategy, that's resilience. When you see a community raising kids with purpose, guarding their families with love and discipline, you realize why they stand so strong. Because while the rest of the world is busy chasing the next distraction, they're raising the next generation, and that's power building the future. What amazes me most is the resilience that comes from rituals and sacrifice. Take Ramadan, for example, an entire month where Muslims fast from sunrise to sunset, no food, no water, not even a sip, while still going about their lives. I've seen fighters train while fasting, sweating through brutal workouts without a complaint. I've seen construction workers out in the heat, working all day, breaking fast only when the sun goes down. That's not convenience, that's discipline on a whole different level. And it makes you think. Most of us panic if we skip breakfast. We get cranky, unfocused, like the world's ending because we missed a meal. If you can't skip breakfast, How are you going to skip distractions? How are you going to face adversity, loss, or setbacks? That's the point of these rituals. They toughen you up in ways comfort never will. Discipline isn't about making life easy. It's about preparing for when life isn't easy, and rituals like fasting are the training ground. They strip away luxury, they strip away excuses, and they leave you face to face with your own willpower. That's when you discover what you're really made of. What's powerful is that it's not just athletes or monks doing this, it's everyday people, parents, students, workers, people who still show up for life while carrying the weight of sacrifice. That's resilience at scale. And when millions of people commit to that kind of discipline all at once, it creates a culture of strength you can feel. Rituals build resilience because they remind you that you don't need everything you think you do. You don't need constant comfort, endless food, or instant gratification. You need discipline. You need patience. And those who practice it, who make sacrifice part of their daily rhythm, walk through life with a toughness most of us can only imagine. That's the kind of strength the world can't shake. Here's the paradox that really blows my mind. Real freedom doesn't come from doing whatever you want. It comes from discipline. Out here, we treat indulgence like freedom. Eat what you want, drink what you want, scroll till your eyes bleed, chase every impulse, but the more you indulge, the more trapped you actually are. You're chained to cravings, to comfort, to your own ego. What I see in Islam flips that idea upside down. Submission, humility isn't weakness, it's a form of strength. When you kneel in prayer, when you admit there's something bigger than you, that's not losing power, that's gaining it, because now your ego doesn't run the show. Your impulses don't control you. That's real freedom, being able to master yourself instead of being mastered by your own desires. I've experimented with psychedelics, trying to break past the ego, trying to see life from a higher perspective. And sure, it works in flashes, but Muslims do that 5 times a day through prayer. No substances, no shortcuts, just pure discipline. It's like a built-in reset button for the soul. Think of it as a cheat code. While everyone else is stuck playing the game at surface level, chasing rewards, chasing dopamine, humility lets you break the loop. Restraint becomes power. You realize you don't need every desire satisfied to be whole. You don't need to prove you're the center of the universe to matter. That's the spiritual freedom I see in Islam. It's not about less, it's about more. More clarity, more peace, more strength. The irony is, when you let go of the ego, you finally discover what it feels like to be unshakable. What really blows me away is the sheer scale of the Muslim community. Over 1 billion people, different languages, different cultures, different continents, but all practicing the same rituals every single day. Think about that. A farmer in Morocco, a businessman in Dubai, a student in London, a fighter in Dagestan, they all stop at the same times to pray in the same direction. That's not just tradition. That's global unity in motion. And it's not some abstract idea. It's lived reality. When you see footage of millions gathering for Hajj in Mecca, all dressed the same, circling together in worship, you realize you're looking at one of the most unified movements on the planet. There's nothing else like it. No brand, no government, no social media platform can create that kind of cohesion. This isn't marketing, it's identity. Now compare that with the rest of the world. We're fractured, lost in consumerism, distracted by endless feeds and notifications. Companies fight for your attention, algorithms divide people for profit, and everyone's chasing the next shiny thing. That's not unity, it's noise. Meanwhile, this massive global community is moving in lockstep, bound by discipline and belief. That's why I see it as unstoppable. When people are united by something higher than money or status, they become a force you can't ignore. And it's not about domination, it's about stability, resilience, and clarity of purpose. While the rest of us argue online or drown in distractions, Muslims are raising generations who know exactly who they are and what they stand for. And here's the truth, the future doesn't belong to the most distracted. It belongs to the most disciplined. It belongs to communities with cohesion, with values, with an anchor that holds them steady. And if you look around, you can see it happening right in front of us. The power of purpose will always outlast the noise of consumption. Andrew Tate is a perfect example of why this conversation matters. Here's a guy who had everything the world tells you to chase: money, cars, fame, women, status. On the surface, he was winning the game. But then you listen to him and he's saying he felt empty. That hits me because I've seen it over and over again. Guys with all the toys, all the success, and yet they're still searching for meaning. That's when you realize the game itself is broken. Tate's decision to convert to Islam wasn't about giving something up. It was about finding something real. Discipline, structure, faith, purpose. The very things most of us are starving for but don't even realize it. His story matters because it shows that no amount of success can replace a sense of direction. You can climb to the top of the mountain and still feel lost if you don't know why you're climbing in the first place. That's the power of faith. It calls people back, even the ones who seem to have it all. And when someone like Tate, with that much influence, takes a step toward discipline and humility, it sends a message. It proves that this isn't just about culture or tradition, it's universal. Deep down, we're all wired to seek purpose. And if a man who had everything admits he was still searching, maybe it's time we all ask ourselves what we're missing. Because meaning beats material every single time. Look, I'm not here to preach. I'm not telling anyone what to believe or how to live, but I am saying this. When you see discipline, unity, and purpose at that level, you got to respect it. You can't ignore it. Strength isn't always about flexing your muscles or showing off what you own. Sometimes strength is kneeling 5 times a day, no matter what's going on around you. That's a kind of power we don't talk about enough. And maybe that's the part that sticks with me. We live in a culture that celebrates chaos, endless distractions, nonstop noise. But when I see Muslims living with that kind of structure, I have to ask myself, what's my anchor? What do I hold on to when life gets rough? Because if you don't have one, you'll drift. That's just reality. So this isn't about religion as a competition or who's right and who's wrong. It's about seeing an example of strength through discipline and asking what we can learn from it. Can we bring that same level of intention into our own lives? Can we build that same sense of unity in our own communities? That's the challenge I'll leave with you. Look at what anchors you. If your life feels scattered, if you feel like you're drifting, maybe the lesson here isn't about more freedom, but more focus. Maybe real respect begins with reflection. When you step back and look at it all, the faith, the discipline, the unity, you realize there's something powerful here that goes way beyond just ritual. It's a system for living, a way to anchor yourself in a world that's constantly trying to pull you in every direction. And whether you believe in it or not, you can't deny the impact it has on the people who practice it. Think back to the hook we started with. Maybe your own realization is still waiting. Maybe you're walking around thinking freedom is doing whatever you want, whenever you want. But deep down, you know that's not fulfillment. Real strength comes from meaning, from discipline, from being part of something bigger than yourself. That's the challenge I'll leave you with. Explore it, respect it, and if you feel like you're drifting through life without purpose, maybe it's time to ask what discipline could give you. Because at the end of the day, strength isn't just muscle, it's meaning. And right now, maybe that's what we need most.